Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic. It's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform and shares a lot of information to a broader audience. So we wish you all the best, and please continue serving
AAU TV,
the voice of higher education in Africa.
Hello there, it's another exciting episode of the CGC show, the Career Guidance and Counseling Show on AAU TV. And AAU TV is the voice of higher education in Africa. As usual, we are coming to you live from the headquarters of the Association of African Universities here in Accra, Ghana. And I am your host, Aja Umi. Do join us on our social media handles at AAU_TV on Twitter, Association of African Universities on Facebook and on YouTube, and at AAU TV Official on Instagram. Today we will be discussing quite a very interesting career path or topic, and the person is here, the guest is here, I am ready, the guest is ready, and I hope you are ready too. The person calls himself a wood engineer. Try and guess what career path we will be discussing. We'll be back after the break.
4 years ago, like most young people, I was clueless as to what I wanted to do and which institution would help me realize a great career. What better place to pursue this dream than Blue Crest College? With state-of-the-art lecture halls and experienced lecturers, as well as equipped computer labs, Blue Crest is indeed the right starting point. With certificate, diploma and degree programs in information technology, business administration, journalism, oil and gas, Blue Crest is the one-stop institute for everyone who is looking to have a great career. Enroll now. Visit www.bluecrest.edu.gh or call any of the numbers on the screen. Blue Crest College. Education for life.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is the CGC show on AAU TV, and today we will be discussing a very interesting career path. We will be discussing carpentry as a career path, and my guest is in the person of Mr. Seth Mensah-Nortey, and he actually prefers to be called a wood engineer. Welcome, Mr. Wood Engineer.
Thank you, madam.
I'm so honored to have you here to talk about carpentry, a career path that a lot of people have so many misconceptions about. Tell us how you started. What inspired you to do carpentry?
Thank you very much. Actually, when I was growing, I had a granddad who happens to be a carpenter. Okay. And then anytime I close from school, I would go to my granddad, greet him, and then try to help him to do some of the packing in his workshop. The one thing I realize is anytime I go there, I will find nails, like falling nails. Anytime you go to workshop, a carpentry workshop, you see whenever they finish work, when you are sweeping the ground, you find some nails, falling nails on the grounds. And then I got the inspiration that anytime I go there, I'll just pack those nails, send it home, and then find any loose, we call it kitchen stool. Okay. That is dancing. Yeah. I'll try my best, find some stone, use the nail to strengthen the chair. Wow. So I keep doing those things, and then I just got some nickname that maybe I'll be a carpenter in future. But I have not decided when I was in the GHS, by then JSS. So when I finished school and I happened to enter into the tertiary, which is Koforidua Technical School. My course decision for that school was building construction or block laying and concreting. Okay. It's another course in the building industry. When we got there, per my grade I had, I was told that the place, it's full. Yeah, okay. So they have to give me a subsequent subject to practice or be doing. Yes, so that when in the next semester, I'll come back to the main course. So we started the first year, I didn't see anything. That is the carpentry. They gave me carpentry as a suggested course. Was full. But
then before you were going to the secondary school, you said that during your JHS time, you could take nails,
leftover nails to
kitchen stools.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just decide to go to do that?
Actually, when we were in school, you'll be asked, what do you want to be in the future? I said, I want to be a mason, or we call it mason. But when you go to the technical school, it's block laying and concreting. And so that was my main view of going to school at that time. But when I was giving the carpentry, the first year, I didn't see anything. Like I was failing. I happened to have an uncle too in the area where I was schooling. So I told him every Saturday I'll spend some time and then maybe come and be helping him to do some. He was into furniture, carpentry, joinery. They do wardrobes and those stuff. So my mom told me, okay, when you close from school on Saturday after washing, go and help your uncle so that you get some knowledge about the carpentry you are doing now. So whilst I was there, I started getting interest in the carpentry subject.
Can I say that you were more like polishing what you were doing way back in JHS?
More so, something like that. Because I realized the practical, we do the theory in class, and then we have some days to go to the field and do practicals. But then anytime we go to the practical, I realize I recollect what I've been doing in the house those days. And then I became more interested in the practical than the theory. So it's add up that, okay, let me go and do some more, let's say, helping with my uncle to polish it. Maybe I can get on board whilst we are going. So during that time, I realized I became something like I got more interested in the carpentry. And I said, okay, if I'm getting a good response from the practicals, then let me master the theory so that it will merge the two. Yeah. So I told myself, okay, maybe God wants me to be a carpenter, but I don't know. I was thinking I want to be a block layer and concreting. So let me tune my mind on the carpentry so that I will learn it well rather, and then maybe after school, I don't know where God will take me. So when I started that thinking and then decision, the next term to be promoted to the next class, I was, my scores came up, like my grade came up. And I told myself, okay, I can do it. Let me add more. So anytime we go for practicals, if I'm not third in the grade, I'll be first. And I said, okay, then let me close my mind on the block laying and then focus on the carpentry. That is where it started from. Yes.
Wow. And up to date, you are into it. How long have you been doing that?
Yeah, let me just chip in this. After the technical school, that Co-Federal Technical, after the school, I was more or less like, since I got a good grade in the intermediate, we call it intermediate. After intermediate, I was advised that, okay, why wouldn't you go further and then do more of the carpentry? So I was introduced to St. Paul's Technical School at Kukrantumi to offer a 2-year advanced course on carpentry. I went there and then I was able to pass that one too. After that one, I have to do some industrial attachments. So my uncle told me, okay, we have so many companies in Ghana who goes into carpentry and then productions. But because of the industrial attachment, I was connected to Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, the civil department, which they do renovations. They do more or less carpentry, mason, plumbing, and those things. So I was taken to the carpentry session. I did 6 months attachment there. And then whilst I was doing the attachment, I told myself, there are bigger furniture companies in Ghana. So why don't I apply for those companies to get more ideas about the carpentry industry? And then fortunately for me, I applied to Agowu Furniture.
Yeah, I know
Agowu Furniture company. And then I had the opportunity to work with them. And it came to a time I was even the supervisor with Agowu company. Yes, that is where I got most of the experiences, because with a supervisor, you'll be going to town, take measurements, design the kitchen cabinet wardrobes that the clients want, communicate with the clients. I have the opportunity to meet clients I've never seen before. So I realized what the decisions that I take helped me up to that level.
Yeah. Yeah. And from what you are saying, or you said, I can say that it was just the change of mind that did the thing for you.
Sure.
You were supposed to go and you wanted to do masonry.
Masonry, yeah.
You were put into carpentry.
Yeah.
Because you didn't like it, you were failing.
Yeah.
But immediately you changed, you had a change of mindset. You were able to excel, you went for more training, and then here you are today.
Yes.
Wow, that is so inspirational.
Thank you.
That's very, very inspirational.
Yeah.
And I can tell that it's not just about the skill. You need training too.
You need training.
You need training, the education.
Yeah.
Formal education.
Sure.
But there's this misconception that a lot of carpenters don't speak good English, or they don't even attend school.
I don't agree to that.
Definitely.
Because on the field of work, definitely you meet somebody who might not speak a Ghanaian language.
Yeah.
Definitely, even applying for a job, you have to write. So if you don't speak good English, you might not be able to be given the contract. So from my experience, most of my colleagues that I meet or I get in contact with, they speak good English. And then but about speaking good English, I think it's involved a lot of hard work. Because if you can't express yourself, convince the customer that maybe I want to do a kitchen cupboard for you. Sometimes you meet a customer, the customer will tell you, you are the engineer, advise me on what to do, how to do it. I have an idea, but because you are in the field, you might have more experience about how to set my kitchen. So the person will tell you, okay, how do I do it? Without a good expression, you can never win the contract.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. And you know, there's this people always tag carpenters as a low class, because I don't know whether because they see it to not be a white collar job or something, because you people do like you are into field work.
Yeah.
Well, how do you relate to these tags that people give to carpenters? But you guys are low lives, you don't really do much. And looking at your story, I trust that you've worked for big companies. How do you deal with that tag?
Actually, for me, I will say carpentry is a good job and a good opportunity if you really put your mind into it. As I speak now, I have about 3 people I'm training to be like me in future. I told them from the beginning that it's not about the money, it's not about the big name, but it's about what you can do to be recommended. So most of the guys, excuse me to say, we have people whom I may think they don't humble themselves to learn the work well. So they run away from the training thinking they have mastered. So they will be on the street claiming to be carpenters. But when you give them contracts, you end up either losing your money or getting a shoddy work. But from my side, I try my best to study more after school. Anytime I get in touch with a new design, I study the design and I ask myself, can I do this thing? Sometimes I'll go to my workshop, try to do something like that, struggle with what I've seen on picture or on the net to see if I can do the same thing. At the end of the day, maybe I may do 90% of it because I was not the one who designed it. Yeah. So the perception behind that people don't regard carpenters, I don't think it's a good statement or a good mindset for people to be thinking. We have good and best carpenters in here. And then more often, for me, I studied carpentry and joinery. It's 2 different things.
Okay.
Yes, carpentry is construction.
Let's go for a break, and then when we come back, you delve into that issue. You tell us more about the profession. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAU TV @aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is the CGC show on AAU TV, and we have been discussing carpentry as a career path. Mr. Seth Mensah Norte has already delved into how he started, what inspired him, some of the training and skills he acquired to master his craft, and all of that. Before we went on break, you were talking about carpentry and joinery, the difference between carpentry and joinery. Tell us more.
Okay, carpentry is more or less like using rough materials. If I say rough materials, it's like you are building drain gutters. You see, we have carpenters who deal with structures, like constructing structures. That is the definition for carpentry. They work with rough materials. If you say rough materials like wood doesn't go through machine process. Recently, we've done advanced in the carpentry aspect. Some people do machinery before because you want the work to be neat. But basically, carpentry is more or less like people who normally don't work with machines, industrial machines. Yes. We specify them as those who do roof construction, drain gutters. That is a few of them.
Okay. So there are different types.
There are different types. Yeah. And then if you come to the joinery, the joinery aspect, when you are constructing something as joinery, we don't use nails. We use joints. Joints as in maybe you are constructing a drawer or a kitchen cupboard. A kitchen cupboard, we use joints to bring the boxes together.
Wow.
If it is a carpenter, the carpenter will use nails. And the finish will not be like a joiner.
Oh, I see.
Yes. The joiner use more of machine for the construction. Let's say you are preparing a panel door. If a carpenter is doing a panel door, the carpenter will end up knocking the woods together to get the thing. It needs something to be. Example of a carpenter doing a door in a construction site is maybe putting the boards together, nail them. We call them batten doors. Nail them to get a storage door to maybe lock some items to prevent maybe intruders from taking them from the site. But a joiner will go to the machine shop, prepare the wood, season the wood before using it, so that you don't have problem whereby after the construction you see some doors twisting, warping, cracks in it.
I see.
So that is the difference, the small difference that I can give you.
But it's like the joiners are more crafted than the carpenters.
The carpenters, yeah.
But they are two different things.
They are two different things.
That's so interesting. I hope you at home too, you're making notes of these things. And if you are in the tertiary studying carpentry or joinery, I'm sure that you're enjoying this conversation. So let me go straight into the challenges you faced. No, before I go into the challenges, talk about your big projects. What are some of the big projects you can you have worked with?
Talking about big projects that I've worked with, I think because of my experience from the AAU Furniture as a supervisor, it gave me the opportunity to explore. So because of my CV from those companies that I work with, I had the opportunity to work with a company in Kumasi. The company's name is Wiafi Furniture. I happened to do a 2-year contract with them in Kumasi.
You've really gone far.
Yes. I think because of my work and then experience I have. From there, I have to move back to Accra to work with Forest Hotel in Dodowa. I happened to be a subcontractor whilst they were doing some renovation and new construction there. We did door installation and then wall paneling. Those ones we were using plaster boards and then woods, like to do partitions in the walls. It's a hotel. So creating offices and then paneling the walls so that you get a smooth surfaces. I worked with them for some time, and then I also had an opportunity to work with Key Construction Company. It's a company that builds high-rising buildings. Example is the Aris apartment close to National Service Secretariat. It's opposite. There's an apartment there. I happen to be a subcontractor to work with them. Yeah, we had so many contracts with Key Construction. That is the few companies that I've.
What has been some of the challenges you encountered?
For the challenges, I may say it's not really a challenge, but it's an opportunity for you to grow in the business. Because sometimes you work with a company and then what you expect, you don't get. Yeah, in terms of payment. Because it's a company, they might tell you maybe we don't have enough money to pay you at this particular time. It may be a challenge for you, but as a professional, it's an experience for me to know how to calculate my working experience, because there are times you may not get money, there are times the monies will come. And then not necessarily, maybe they will think about, maybe will not give you money, but the monies will delay. Yeah, so within those periods, you have to know how to balance your workers and then how to move on.
Can you share with me some of the benefits you think you being a carpenter, you've really enjoyed?
Actually,
in the working field.
In the working field, the benefits I may say I've got is working with big companies. I had opportunity to meet some vital people in the public domain, and then it was a very good experience for me. And then I realized the good training I had from the beginning and how I humble myself, because I'm a type that even if a customer complains that maybe I've done something for you, the thing I did, there's fault on it, I'll tell you I'm sorry. I'll come back again to come and then rectify whatever the problem is. So based on that relationship I have with most of my customers, I'm being recommended to other people to get contract from them. Sometimes people will call me, I don't have any idea about how they got my number. Later, before they'll tell me, okay, this person gave me the contract. I even had a contract with Agape Church, which was a recommendation from a client that I work for. And I did some jobs for them.
So it's all about humility and then you trying so hard to do your work perfectly.
Yes, and I think you need to be trusted too. Because if somebody will call you to send you money or meet you and give you a sum of money, let's say 10,000 Ghana cedis, to start a work for him, if the person don't trust you, I don't think he will risk his money for you. So what I would say is it's about you humble yourself and then be trustworthy. That is the key word. Because I've got experience of people collecting people's money and they never show up. So sometimes customer will tell you, I've had problems with carpenters coming to take my money, and I don't see them. I call them, their phones are off.
But how is that? How far can you run?
The farthest is not about the person running, but I think maybe if the person have a lot of work on him, and then you don't tell the customer, okay, I have this contract pending, which I'm working on. Please give me some time. When I'm done with this one, I'll get back to you.
Okay. But sometimes these clients themselves, they insist on you doing the thing for them. It's like you have a contract pending, you tell them, but then he or she will be like, I want you to do it for me. And so you will also be forced to take the money without working on it.
Yeah, for my side, I have to check my workload. If what I'm doing at that moment, it will not help me to adjust myself and do the emergency work coming, I will explain to you that, okay, you want it in this time, but I can manage to squeeze myself and then finish it on this time for you. I think when you explain to the person at this juncture, the person might think twice, okay, for me to give a contract to somebody which I will not see again, and I'll wait for maybe 2 weeks or 1 week to get a reliable person to work for me, I think the person will tell you, okay, I will go with your word. I'll wait for you to do the work for me. But I think that one too counts on your finish and then your ability to do what they want for you. If the person don't trust you, I don't think he'll wait for you to come and do the work for him. So I think that is the difference between maybe you getting more contract, you getting more connected. It's all about hard work and then prayer.
Like you've mentioned hard work, prayer, humility, and then skill. What other qualities do you think a person should have if he or she wants to go into carpentry?
The other thing the person need to have is obedient. I think I forgot that. You have to be obedient. You need not to be, in quote, arrogant in seeking for a profession like that. Because sometimes some of our work fails. Maybe you are constructing something and then there might be a problem. Let's assume the person have given you 15,000 Ghana cedis to construct something for him or her. And then within some time, because of the construction process, something went wrong. And then there's a mess up. From the view of the person who have paid that much money, there will be anger. For you as an engineer, you need to know how to respond to the anger. If you are not careful, you lose the contract. Your reaction will make you lose the contract or win back the person. You understand my point? Yeah. So how you relate to your customer is very key.
But why is it that a lot of you carpenters are males? I don't really see females in that field. Why is it so male dominant?
And for that aspect of question, I think I've read and then watched so many YouTube, and I've seen majority of white carpenters or joiners that are women. They have their own shop, they construct small buildings, they construct tables, they construct simple things that you can go with. Maybe a center table, a dining table, a TV stand. Simple things that you can easily use portable machines to bring them together. Because the materials are in town, which if you have the training and the knowledge, how to design something, just simple thing, you can do it without any pressure. But the one thing I've realized is in this industry, most of the things, it's like we've classified it as men work.
Because
Especially
in Africa here.
Yes. And then one thing I've realized is when we were in school, some ladies came, like they want to offer the course. Through the practicals, they could not. They changed the course to painting and decorating. Because one thing you realize is from the school aspect of training, you'll be lifting big woods. You'll be doing heavy things. And then ladies don't have that capacity. But if you come to the industry, we have ladies who have the desire to go into that field. I think those who want to go, it's a matter of training. We have different types of woodwork that ladies can do, especially assembly this thing, this TV unit.
Okay.
A lady can do it because some of them comes with manual. It's a matter of reading the manual, bringing the parts together, and then you form the thing you want out of it. It's very easy. It depends on the determination.
Exactly. What will be your last words? What will you tell somebody that is into carpentry? Somebody studying carpentry, what will you tell the person?
I would like to encourage the person to take the carpentry very seriously because it's a good work. I'm enjoying it now. And I'm even planning to get people on board to train so that they can go into this business. It's a very good field that if you study well and then you put your heart into it, you go far. You go far.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation to come on board to talk about carpentry. And thank you too for tuning in. This has been the CGC show on AAU TV. If you have any questions, any suggestions, you can leave them on our social media platforms at AAU_TV on Twitter, Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube, and at AAU TV Official on Instagram. You can also send us a WhatsApp message via +233 5012384468, and you have all your questions answered. Do not forget to stay safe in this corona season. We are all trying to eradicate this pandemic globally. So wash your hands and adhere to all precautionary measures, and we'll see you next time. My name is Aja Omi. Enjoy the rest of our programs.
Come back, president. You go back. One, two, three. Quick. Now go down. It's a drive. Back control. Watch the line. Watch the line. One good pass. Come on, next. One good pass. Next. People like this. You not be anything. If your grandfather was don't worry, I don't mind. You are now we are done or they are done. I said to America, all right.
We are ready. People like this? No! Also star girls! Hey, believe it! Hey!
If you go promote her to BC for me. Quick! Let the ball stand! Fire! Jennifer! No, you don't worry. You basketball. If you don't give you 100, you big down. Let give you 100. No. Let the ball stand again. Jump it there. Go. You go down. It's a pass. Wait, Antenna, you can't where the ball can. You don't see where the ball can go. Relax. He's confused. What's the idea? Yes! Yes! Hey, you don't understand that. You don't understand that. I will not go. You do your mouth. I will not go. Abigail, 7. Go, go, go. Good job. Quick. Let me join the middle.
Guys, let's read the bench.
Let's go. Let's go here. So sit down yourself. Come here. Just stand here. Master can't stand here. What? Hey, Andreas.
All right, so we're still here at the University of Ghana volleyball court. Just ended volleyball women against University of Ghana, between University of Ghana and University of Winnipeg, which University of Ghana actually lost this match. But we have Henry Nisaki, the coach for the volleyball women University of Ghana here. Hello, sir. Welcome to AAU.
Thank you.
So what happened to the University of Ghana team? They had their A game on almost to the win, but unfortunately there was a loss. What happened?
I think the beginning was quite checkered for us. The players couldn't find their rhythm, their feet quickly. So the first two sets didn't go our way. We stayed the comeback, and you saw the results. We took the second two sets. I think fatigue set in. I realized most of the opponent team were younger, quite agile. I had to introduce the libero to come and have some big ones to go and rest a little and come back. So the fatigue what actually caused us. It happened that those ones actually couldn't stay in camp with us because of their work. Some are immigration officers and keep working and combining schooling. Some are mothers who could not leave their families to stay. So they couldn't go through the endurance training that we went through. And that was the cause of the fatigue in this match.
It was a good game. I mean, we had high expectations, and unfortunately, we'd say it was a bad day, and we are believing that the other games will be better.
Okay. So what should we expect from your team in the other game?
Expect a win from Team UG in our next game.
We're here to interview the team that won fantastically over here. So team, what's up?
Actually, it wasn't easy.
Really?
But then, we had a good start, but later our morale was down. And one thing about playing sports is getting yourself together, bringing up morale, and because your morale can confuse your opponent. But then we were able to do our homeworks well, and then we came back on track, and then we took it.
Whilst watch, you realized that there was some confusion. Some of your members were not in the right places. You were talking against each other. How were you able to, amidst that confusion, still get your A game on?
With that, there was a bit of tension. We were tensed up because we were being extra careful. It's better you play safe rather than playing your heart out, spoiling the game, and then it would demoralize your teammate. So we came together, spoke among ourselves, and then we were able to pick up. That is what made us came back on track, and then we were able to beat our opponents.
No, University of Ghana, your opponents were also very tactical. They actually overtook you on the point, got at the last lap. But what happened? How were you able, did you spot any weakness in them? How were you able to counter up and then win them finally?
Sure. One, they were afraid. Two, we realized that they were good. So the only thing we were supposed to do was to watch loopholes and drop balls. And that's exactly what we did. So we were able to figure their weaknesses. And out of that, we were able to beat them based on their weaknesses.
Great. So what should we expect from University of Ghana women volleyball team? What should we expect?
We are taking the silver to our house.
Your first attack.
Next one!
Loose ball. Flat. Kakali, jump back. Hey,
Hello and welcome to another edition of Agenda 2063 TV show, the only show in Ghana, the region, continent, as authentic stories about Africa's integration. But even though we spend the better part of the series talking sometimes about AfTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, we're always going to come back to viewers and listeners to talk about Agenda 2063, because it is the African man's dream, and it's important that we unpack it for people to understand it and to buy into the idea that Agenda 2063 is here to stay. It doesn't have to be realized by 2063 when some of us will be gray and old. It can be realized before then. It's an aspiration. So let's see what we can do about it by using things like this show to help people understand Agenda 2063. My name is E.K. Benson Jr., your regular host for the show. Nice to be coming your way. We're going to take a break in a minute, then we'll be right back with the two segments for you. We'll be right back. So we're going to start off with here on East Africa. And here on East Africa, we have some very exciting updates. Usually what we do with here on East Africa is to give you updates of developments in that region of the continent. There's a lot of very dynamic things happening there. So sometimes we'll give you stories or just give you developments on Twitter, some of the things that have popped up. One of the things that we can confidently report to you is that Ethiopia has inaugurated its commercial bank, the very new headquarters of its commercial bank. It is now the tallest building in East Africa and the third in the continent. The tower is 209.50 meters tall with 53 floors and 1,500 parking lots. When you take a look at the pictures, what you will see, very beautiful, big monuments standing right in the middle of the capital city. And at night, from the pictures, it looks very, very beautiful. Once again, something that the Chinese have built. We also know that the AAU building was built by the Chinese. So clearly the Chinese have very important interests in East Africa and the rest of the continent. But in East Africa especially, it looks like they're very keen to be helping with infrastructure. So that's that with the commercial building. They're moving still on to East Africa. The Lake Turkana Wind Power Project is in northern Kenya, and it is the largest wind power plant in Africa. Note that, the largest wind power plant in Africa. It generates about 310 megawatts of power to the national grid. So anytime I speak to my Kenyan friends and I tell them that we have lights off, or in Ghana, as they call Dumso, they're wondering why that keeps happening a lot of the time, even though the power has been pretty stable of late. And the thing is this, in Kenya, Kenya Power has been doing quite a bit of good work and has been, I think the government has been investing quite heavily in power systems, probably in a way that here in Ghana, we could do a lot better in, even though we also export into other countries in the sub-region, which is strange why we don't always, our lights are not always stable and regular. So what Kenyans often get are power disruptions. So disruptions of power that sometimes, you know, as witnessed like 3 weeks ago or so, when it trended on the Kenyan Twitter, you will see that people were complaining that the power, something had gone off in one of the systems that help power distribute power to the city of Nairobi, and I think it had gone off or something due to wind or something had triggered it off. So almost for the better part of the day, citizens of Nairobi and much of Kenya did not have power, but it was fixed very soon after that. So clearly what we are seeing is that Nairobi is identifying different ways in which it can help feed the power, the national grid. And this clearly is the future, and this is the way we need to go as far as electricity. So I hope that countries like Ghana will be learning from what Kenya has been doing, even though we also have the expertise. Let's also talk a bit with them to see how they have been able to have regular supply of electricity for many, many, many months than we are able to. Now, still continuing with East Africa, there's some news that the construction of a bridge in Tanzania, which is a bridge that will go over Lake Victoria, will enter a new phase, and the bridge is called Kigongo Busisi Bridge. The 3.2 kilometer and 28.45 mile wide bridge will be the longest bridge in East Africa and the 6th longest on the continent. So already, just from these three stories, we're seeing that Kenya is not Kenya. East Africa is coming up with milestones. Ethiopia has come up with the largest building in East Africa with the Central Bank of Ethiopia. Lake Turkana, also the largest solar wind power system. And then we're also seeing this one in Tanzania, Lake Victoria. This Kigongo Busisi Bridge. So this suggests that East Africa is doing a lot of very exciting and dynamic things. I think a lot of us need to be following and see what we can do to emulate them and even have conversations with them. In an area of the African Continental Free Trade Area, I think they're getting quite smart, and we need to get a bit more dynamic on that. Continue still with East Africa. This one is about an appointment. Deloitte East Africa has announced Anne Muraya as the incoming Deloitte East Africa CEO. She will be the first female CEO for Deloitte East Africa and will oversee Deloitte's offices in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and other East Africa locations. Still with East Africa, almost done with East Africa, Kekebet Dam along the Baka River in Eritrea was built by Eritrean engineers and also fully funded by Eritrea. It's good to know because Eritrea has had a lot of bad news around it for many years, being in the region they call the IGAD region, where it's situated with Djibouti, Ethiopia, and the countries in the Horn of the continent. So nice to know that Eritrea is able to have its own money to do a lot of things rather than relying on multilateral institutions. Then we're almost done with the East Africa story. And they say this is a fact, that you go to Nairobi to do business, you go to Kampala to party and have fun, and you go to Kigali to sleep. They say this is a popular remark used by most East Africans about the capital cities in the region, suggesting, I guess, that Nairobi is the place where people are really serious and there's a lot of institutions to help create this atmosphere of people working. Kampala, they like to have fun. They're very loud and open-minded, and they like they're chilling much more than Nairobians do. Nairobians are more serious with their business. Those in Uganda like to chill and have fun. And when you go to Kigali, Kigali is so organized and disciplined that the only thing that you can do is to sleep. I don't know what you think about that, but that's what East Africans are saying. We'll be finding out the true state of that statement later. And then finally, some rather sad news on East Africa is that there's a post that says that a drying East Africa fuels ongoing conflicts in Somalia and Kenya, which suggests that there's some challenges on climate, and also with the stories about the locusts and desertification that we've been hearing in the East African region causing hunger and all these things, that is still there. A lot of climate change challenges that are happening, and those are things that clearly, I think in West Africa also we're having with the Sahel region and the drier parts of the region. But in East Africa, it's something that they clearly need to work on. So that's really it with Aeon East Africa. Hope it was a very exciting segment that has helped you better understand and appreciate what the region is doing. We're going to take a quick break in a minute, then we'll come to APRM Watch, where we will give you very important updates on developments of that AU institution. We're going to take a break in a minute. We'll be right back. Okay, so welcome back from the break. And with APRM, APRM Twitter feed has been quite buzzing for the past couple of days. The fourth edition of the AU APRM end of year biannual sovereign credit rating review report has presented an analysis of the long-term foreign currency sovereign credit rating actions in Africa. In English, what that means basically is that the African Union and the APRM, which is an autonomous agency of the AU, responsible for good governance, promoting good governance on the continent and doing reviews and helping governments get on track on ensuring that they maintain standards of good governance. Together with the African Union, they have come out with the 4th edition of their publication, looking at sovereign credit ratings. Sovereign credit is important on the continent because what that does is it allows countries to know the state of the country and whether it is credit worthy, okay? Whether it can still get it's good enough to receive credit from multilateral donors and all these other institutions. Sometimes you'll get ratings from organizations like Moody and Fitch that we like to hear a lot. What these institutions are really telling us, credit rating agencies are telling us, is that if it's a C, it means that you are okay to get credit. When it's a B or an A, it means that your economy is doing very well. But of late, what we have seen is that sometimes, even when an economy is doing well in Africa, these institutions of Moody and Fitch and so on, which are Western institutions, may say that you have a C or lower rating, which will disproportionately affect your economy, because then what that will do is that it will tell the world that you are not, you don't have enough, you're not qualified enough to get sufficient credit to run your government and to run things in the economy. And that is a problem, reason for which the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is also responsible for looking at credit rating and helping establish a continental credit rating system, decided to issue a press release the other day, almost at the same time that Ghana also issued a statement criticizing one of the multilateral credit agencies, Fitch, Moody, for downgrading the rating of Ghana. For APRM, in the press release that they issued last week or so, they made recommendations on what Ghana needs to do, and also some of the challenges that come with Western credit rating agencies. Sometimes they have one person looking at 15 countries, and sometimes they don't even go to those countries to look at the internal dynamics of that country and just make blanket statements. That does not augur well for that country. So one of the recommendations APRM has made is that Africa should begin to look at having its own credit rating agencies. 2 days ago, Ghana was on the news that Ghana Stock Exchange, for example, will set up a credit rating agency in June, which is a good way, it's a good start for countries, African countries, in having their own, building their own capacity to say our economy is not good, it's good, or what these international institutions are saying are good or not. So I think we're on the right track with the credit rating, and the role that APRM is playing in it will begin to unpack over the next couple of weeks, because APRM believes that the mandate that AU member states gave to APRM when they expanded the mandate in 2017, 2018 was to also say that good governance, credit rating reviews are also part of good governance. When your economy is downgraded or upgraded, it affects your governance. And since APRM has everything to do with good governance, they were given that mandate to also assess and look at. So you'll be hearing a lot more about APRM and its response to things like Moody and so on. And an example of this is that in one of the other tweets of APRM is that the report looks into the review done by 3 dominant international credit rating agencies, which are Moody's, Fitch, and S&P Global, during the second half of 2021, and makes recommendations to African countries on how to improve their ratings. So that's a good sign that Africans are beginning to do their own thing, no matter how difficult, no matter how long it has taken. We are seeing some very important signs that we're beginning to claim the space for our own self. Some very other interesting stories on APRM. A couple of days ago, APRM reported that Liberia has launched the Institute of Directors, which was a recommendation made by APRM to Liberia a couple of years ago when they did a review of the country. So the APRM was represented by Tumi Dlamini, who is a senior policy officer responsible for corporate governance of African countries and also APRM. She spoke on the role of good corporate governance practices to build a strong and resilient private sector for stronger economies. APRM peer-reviewed Liberia in 2018 and recommended the formation of an institute of directors. So congratulations to Liberia for this significant milestone. And APRM says they commit to cooperate with the country as they help build an inclusive economy. These are pretty much it, stories, the highlights of APRM. We're going to take a break in a minute, then we'll come back with the mixed bag that we talked about. We were supposed to have an interview with Miranda Lutempo, who is the senior policy officer who is here in Accra on a working visit at AFTA Secretariat. She unfortunately was not able to make it today, but she has sent a story about an event that she organized last week in Malawi, which we'll be able to give you a quick update on in a minute. So we're going to take a break in a minute and we'll be right back with the mixed bag of some of the stories that have been taking place over the past couple of days, for which fall into the category of this show. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back from the break. And so even though we're not able to bring Miranda Lutempo because she's occupied in something elsewhere in Accra, she has sent a story of an event that she organized last week to do with the African Continental Free Trade Area and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in Malawi, in Southern Africa. So basically, the African Union Southern Africa Regional Office, which is AU SARO, in partnership with government of Malawi, ECA, the sub-regional office for South Africa, and the AFTA Secretariat, organized an AFTA multi-stakeholders high-level conference on the 10th and 11th of February in Lilongwe. So the main objective of the conference was to sensitize stakeholders in Malawi on the AFTA agreement, as well as to review Malawi's preparedness and readiness to implement the agreement. The conference was officially opened by His Excellency Mark Katsonga Firi, who is a newly appointed Minister of Trade and Industry. And in the opening remarks, the minister stated that Malawi is proud of a decision to sign and ratify the AFTA agreement. He also further highlighted that this is not only because it is one of the founding members, but also because the country believes in the potential of AFTA as a catalyst for Africa's economic development and realization of the Malawi Vision 2063 and the AU's Agenda 2063. So the AU permanent representative to Southern Africa, the Ambassador David Claude Pierre, also stated that the AFTA will increase not only the ratio of industrial goods to extractive goods, but will ease the process of importing raw materials from other African countries, thus giving SMEs a better chance of succeeding. The Continental Free Trade Area is projected to increase intracontinental exports by more than 81%, while exports to non-African countries will rise by 19%. The net effect of these increases will contribute to the lifting of an additional 30 million people out of extreme poverty. They say by 2035, this is what is going to happen. And then 68 million people out of moderate poverty. In addition, Ms. Eunice G. Kamwendo, Director of ECA SRO, which is a sub-regional office of the ECA in Southern Africa, mentioned, I am aware that the Malawi AFC-FTA strategy, which is a subcomponent of the National Export Strategy and National Trade Policy, will provide impetus for industrialization and development in line with the aspiration of Malawi Vision 2063 to transform Malawi into a wealthy and self-reliant, industrialized, upper-middle income country by the year 2063, as well as regional development aspirations outlined in the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap, the commercial industrial policy, and related trade protocols. The AFTA is a flagship project of Agenda 2063 of the AU. It aims at accelerating intra-African trade and boosting Africa's trading position in the global market by strengthening Africa's common voice and policy space in global trade negotiations. As of 10th February, 41 of the 54 signatories had deposited their instruments of AFTA. So it's just left remaining with 13 more countries that need to ratify, sign and to ratify this. So this is information sent to us by Miranda, the Senior Policy Officer at the Southern African Regional Office in Lilongwe. For those who don't know, the SARO, the AU SARO, is a representational office of the AU in Southern Africa. It develops, maintains constructive and productive relationships between the AU, its member states in the region, as well as SADC and COMESA. The office also aims to increase awareness about AU programs and its mission in the region, monitor socioeconomic and political and cultural developments, as well as liaise and harmonize specific policies of the AU in the Southern African region. So wherever you are, Miranda Lutempo, Senior Policy Officer at SAR, thank you very much for this piece. And we hope to have you the next time in Accra for a face-to-face interview where you'll be telling us what has been happening with the Southern African countries as far as AFTA is concerned. Let's quickly get to some other updates since today it's a bit of a mixed bag. So we can continue with the next story is on the UNDP and AFTA. So at the beginning of this year, UNDP invited myself and my colleague, Louis Yao-Afo, in our capacities as management of AFTA Policy Network, to help speak to Ghanaian journalists in Accra on what is happening around AFTA. So we were just two of the about 4 or 5 other, let's say, quote unquote, consultants or resource people that had been asked by UNDP to help journalists understand and appreciate some of the developments around the African Continental Free Trade Area. At the end of the day, in the same way of what we are doing with this show, is using media for people to understand, one, Agenda 2063, how it works, why it's important, and also the African Continental Free Trade Area, also what it is, why it's important. At the end of the day, it's the media that needs to take the story, buy into it, and also begin to engage the public on why it's important, that AFTA is important. So to that end, we were in the hills, almost near Pedroase Lodge, that area, just for a couple of hours for one day in January. And we got to help journalists understand, go through the AFTA agreement and also experiences and better reporting AFTA and this kind of thing. So UNDP and Ghana's Ministry of Trade and Industry together arranged this program, and we understand that they're going to be organizing this in different regions. They'll be doing one in Kumasi, I think another one in Eastern region, and some of the other regions over time, maybe this year, maybe next year, depends. But this is something that will be regular, and every now and then, UNDP and MOTI, Ministry of Trade and Industry in Ghana, will run these programs for journalists to appreciate that AFTA is here, and they need to understand it. And it's not just something that is useful for Accra journalists. Everyone needs to understand what the African Continental Free Trade Area. At the end of the day, the African Continental Free Trade Area really is a flagship project of Agenda 2063. So we cannot talk about AFTA without talking about Agenda 2063, because it is one of the 14 flagship projects, as is the freedom of movement, which I want to talk to you about right now. Freedom of movement protocol is something that not a lot of people are talking about, but we at AFTA Policy Network, it is one of the things that we are doing with the International Organization for Migration. The International Organization for Migration has been around for decades. It's the UN agency responsible for migration. And thankfully and luckily, we have been in a relationship with them since last August to help people understand why we need to break down the freedom of movement protocol. So we've been doing that on social media, through Twitter and that kind of thing. But the other thing is going forward, we'll be able to do a lot more things. Nice to see you, Oshodi. Yeah, we'll be able to do a lot more things on freedom of movement this year because IOM has been able to secure some kind of support to be able to do things like policy briefs and more interesting, innovative things that will help people understand why freedom of movement is very critical to the conversation on migration and to the conversation on AFTA. So we're looking forward to some updates on that over time. We'll definitely be also interviewing people from IOM responsible for this area of freedom of movement, or at least one person every month to help us, listeners and viewers and followers, better understand from the policymakers themselves why this area of freedom of movement is very, very, very important. Moving on to other things still related to AFTA, the World Customs Union based in Brussels, just a few days ago, just yesterday, signed an MOU with the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is very important, a very, very critical milestone thing, because at the end of the day, customs are the ones that are going to deal directly with the issues on the ports and all these other areas, as far as the African Continental Free Trade Area is concerned. So by having an MOU with the organization that deals, international organization that deals with customs, the AFTA Secretary will begin to build its capacity on also how to strengthen the customs component for the Secretariat and also in the work that it does. The idea of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat is not for it to be there in perpetuity. The idea is for AFTA to graduate to an African Continental Customs Union after about 20 or 25 years. That's a long way away, of course, because we haven't even sorted our free trade area yet. But when you move from a free trade area, the next thing you go to is a customs union. These are the cardinal points of what makes a regional integration arrangement sound. You don't just stick with a free trade area where people are able to send goods to across a particular space, duty-free, quota-free, or liberalized to an extent. No, you graduate. So eventually, Africa will get the African Common Market, African Continental Customs Union, and then a common market. The scheduled date for that is like 2034. That's quite some way away, but you never know. If member states get really serious, it could happen a lot earlier than 2034. So signing this World Customs Organization MOU with AFTA Secretariat is very good for all of us, for all those who are watching AFTA, watching Agenda 2063, because it means that the conversation has shifted very dramatically in a way that will begin to get people a lot more serious about looking towards the future and seeing what they can do to make sure that those who are dragging their feet, member states that are dragging their feet on tariff lines and all these other complicated economic stuff associated with AFTA, can quickly sort themselves out to get the free trade area running adequately, and then eventually graduate to a continental customs union, then a common market, where we'll finally have an African common market where goods are zipping across the sub-regions, duty-free, quota-free. That's the whole idea that we want to do with AFTA. For right now, the goods are liberalized up to 80%. Some countries are not happy with that level of liberalization, but over time, those conversations need to be had by trade ministers of all member states to say, hey, maybe too much liberalization. What can we do to protect our sensitive sectors, like textiles, like agric, like cocoa, and all these things, so that we don't overdo the liberalization, but we can also begin to manufacture and build our productive capacities. So the World Customs Union MOU signed between AFTA And there's a good start in our view on where the conversation on AFTA is going. And finally, being a member of the African Peer Review Mechanism Communications Network and coordinating the Champions Program, I can tell you on authority, recent meeting that we had, I think, a few days ago, conversations with the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, is that the APRM will be having a high-level meeting in third quarter with the AFTA Secretariat to have some very important conversations on developments around common areas of discussion. APRM is known for self-assessments for good governance on the continent, but the AFTA Secretariat last year reached out to APRM and said, look, APRM, you've been doing stuff on good governance. How can you come and work with us on trade so that we can get member states to also look at how they can be a bit more responsible on how they trade, bring some ethics into the trading. And it's not just about trading for the sake of trading, but kind of good governance around trade, and also help monitor compliance by member states on trade. So these are some of the things that would be discussed, we understand, apart from some other conversations that are scheduled between AFTA and APRM around September or so, hopefully in Accra or in Abuja, depending, for a very important conversation that will help shape and pave the way on where these institutions need to go. A lot of people probably didn't know that the OAU was established in 1963. So technically speaking, the OAU/AU has been running since 1963. But here's the catch. In 2002, at a meeting in Durban, South Africa, and many other meetings, some in Zambia, wherever else, the OAU decided to transform itself into an African Union. One of the things that makes the African Union different from the OAU is that the AU is a lot more interventionist, which is to say that the AU now is able to intervene in certain policy areas than the OAU was. OAU was more interested in liberating countries from colonialism and also setting them free from economic doldrums and so on. But the AU began to look at something that was close to the European Union without it being a replica. So the AU, for example, when people speak a bit technically, the AU has what it calls Article 4H of its AU Constitutive Act, which speaks to the AU intervening, for example, where there are human rights abuses, which is something that the OAU did not have. The AU has also been doing a lot of very interesting things, coming up with things like the legal side of things, like the African Human Rights, the African Court of Human and People's Rights in Gambia, and the African Court in Tanzania. Some people are speculating that these two should join together and become an African Court of Justice. We're not quite sure when that is going to happen. There's been lots of papers that have happened around that. Then there are things like the APRM, which was established in 2003, which will celebrate its 20 years next year, which has now become a byword for good governance on the continent. So everyone in AU systems and beyond, when they're talking about good governance and how it works, corporate governance and how it works, will come to the APRM, because that is the AU agency responsible and with the mandate to have that conversation. And then there's the Peace and Security Council. The AU may be criticized for a lot of things, but on peace and security, the AU clearly is world class. And it is not just people like me who are saying it. Tons of academic articles, tons of academic pieces, both from the West and otherwise, speak of an AU that does very good work on peace and security by virtue of the fact that there's a lot of conflicts on the continent. So its systems and structures under the African peace and security architecture allow it to do necessary important work to ensure that there is peace on the continent. So these are some of the things that make the AU worth celebrating. Some of them came from the OAU and have transitioned into AU, and some of them are new things that have popped up. But whatever the case may be, as Agenda 2063, we'll definitely be giving you updates as we head towards the 20th anniversary of the African Union in July, which is also very interesting because in July, the AU will also be celebrating African Integration Day on the 8th of July. So July is going to be quite an exciting time for this show, as well as May, because May is also the month where AU Day is celebrating on the 25th of May in some countries. So exciting times ahead for this show and those who monitor this show and all lovers of Africa. This is an important year to have very important, deep reflections on how the AU responds to crises, to the role of women, to education, and all these things. Because finally, let us not forget the role of the Association of African Universities itself. The Association of African Universities is itself an African AU institution responsible for implementing continental education strategies on the continent. It used to be in Morocco, then it relocated to Accra many years ago. And so here we are. The Association of African Universities is itself tied to the African Union as an educational institution, as one of many. There's also the Pan-African University institutions, some of which are based in all over the continent. There's one in Yaoundé that deals with the governance and translation and interpretation. There's one in South Africa that deals with sciences, space sciences. Kenya also has one that deals in, I believe, in renewable energies and so on. Then there's one in Morocco Algeria that deals with earth sciences. And then there's one in Nigeria, Ibadan, University of Ibadan, that deals with geography and some other related issues. So these are the centers of excellence of the Pan-African University. And a lot of people have graduated from these institutions since it was established, I believe, in about 10 years ago or so. So the conversation on the African Union continues. And we believe that the Agenda 2063 show will continue to unpack some of these in the best possible digestible way, because the AU is a complex institution that cannot be ignored no matter how hard we try. Because at the end of the day, Aspiration 7 of Agenda 2063 speaks to an AU as a global power. So if we need to aspire to the AU as a global power, where we get to the space of the Eswini consensus of 2005 that says the AU can have a seat at the UN Security Council, which has not yet happened, but we're hoping that it will happen someday, then the AU needs to continue to assert itself through the media, through programming, through education, and all these other things. And we believe that we're on the right track to do that. And Agenda 2063 TV show will do its bit to ensure that this happens in its modest way possible. So it is with that that I bring an end to the mixed bag today, but I see that Oshodi is on the line. I don't know, Oshodi, if you can hear me, do you have any question to ask?
Yes, I said the conversation so far has been very fantastic. And I want to thank you for this telecast that keeps on educating and informing us on how we can come together as a continent. On the various issues that you have raised, in what area can we, in the actual sense, facilitate very pragmatic on-site realization of these aspirations that we have so talked about, with particular reference to regional integration? How can we deepen regional integration to define the African perspective? Because you see, trade or whatever other development facet cannot be possible if Africans cannot unite. So how do you think we can expand some of your conversations? How can we share your thoughts, particularly these telecasts now, to listeners out there who would want to ask several other questions? Are there links that they can we can send to them to continue to get informed and also send in questions via that link? What are all of these questions put together? How? What is your response? Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Carl, thank you very much for that question. As you were asking the question, the only thing that came to mind was the media. I believe that at the end of the day, we need to continue to engage the media on these issues because the media are the ones that are the frontliners of everything that we do. You know, the AU can do its own thing in its corner, ECOWAS can do its own thing, COMESA will do its own thing, but if the media does not come in to throw light on what they do, no one will really care. Because for people like us, like me, for example, who is not a scientist, I know that science has saved lives and does some excellent things, but I don't remember the last time I picked up a science journal to read, because it just is not my area. It is just not something that I would want to do unless I want to fall asleep very quickly. So if a journalist is able, for example, to tell me that and argue and articulate with passion how science has been able to contribute to Africa, has been able to help save lives, I will definitely pay more attention to science, which just goes to show that without or with an engaged and passionate media, we can achieve a lot because there's some very good things happening on the continent across all sectors, let's be fair. But if the media is not able to communicate and articulate what they're doing, we will not get anywhere. This after, for example, that we've been all been talking about, it is now becoming clear that a lot of journalists are now realizing that AFTA is part of the AU and is part of Agenda 2063. And why should that be happening 20 years down the line after the AU has been around plus? It is because they had not really made the connection before. Some of them had not paid attention to the AU. So for me, at the end of the day, it needs to be the media. We need to engage the media, sometimes provocatively, sometimes moral suasion, whatever. We need to engage the media to let them know that the AU is important. Agenda 2063 is important. All the things that the African Union discusses around education, women, agriculture, they are all important. It doesn't have to be communicated in the language that the AU communicates, but in a way that is understandable to them. My grandmother, for example, in the Central region, she used to do a lot of trading across in the Central region. God rest her soul. If she were alive, all I would have to tell her is that the trading that you used to do is what AFTA is, you know, and she would get it. I don't need to tell her that it is AFTA. She had been doing it long before AFTA came. So how do we break down these complex ideas for everybody to understand, especially those in the village? Because at the end of the day, Carl, as you know, every African comes from a village. So how do we communicate the things that we have learned around the AU to relatives in the village in a way that they're able to understand and buy into the idea and spread the words over time that, hey, you know, my relative is working around this AU thing. This is what they do, blah, blah, blah. How do we do that? That's a huge challenge. But I think if we get a media that is committed, engaged, and sustained on the issues that you've raised in your question, we will make a lot more progress, because you and I have met very brilliant people who, when they talk, we know that they have the answers to problems. But if the media does not bring them out to the public, how will we know to know who they are? So we need that media. And sadly, as you will know, and not every country has a media that is engaged and passionate about Africa. So that's something, a real hurdles that we need to work on. But I think we have made some progress. We just need to find innovative ways to make it happen, so that the media also do their job and get everyone on track to buy into the African dream, which is Agenda 2063. I hope that has helped.
Yes, of course. It was responded to brilliantly. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Okay, so it looks like Carl was the only question that I had. At this point, we need to wind down. So thank you very much. There'll be a recording of this, and for all those who followed and who follow even after this show has ended, want to say they would love to hear from you. Feedback is always very important, so that we do the best we can to improve the program content and improve the show as well. So thank you. My name is Ike Benson Jr. Thank you to the technical crew for making this happen, for the great work that they do, and for AAU for being one of the best AAU agencies, making sure that education of Agenda 2063 happens every single week. Thank you guys, and we hope to speak to you wherever you are on your laptops and programs, wherever, next time for another exciting edition of the show. Have yourself a great day. Goodbye.
You've looked at the program. I don't need to introduce him. I don't think I'll do justice to the many things he's done. He's the former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology, Kenya, former Chief Executive Officer and Beatrice's boss, Commission for University Education, Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi, and currently he does some work for the World Bank on the Africa Centers of Excellence. Over to you, Professor. Thank you very much. So this is the presentation. Both Tade and Beatrice requested me to come and talk to you. I just come from Kigali. I tried to say no, but they won the argument. So here I am. But what is it that really I want to do? I don't think the title captures it in fully. It's just to challenge you in a very ad hoc-ish manner. As university people, as researchers, as teachers, and certainly paying special attention to the program you are involved in. And I thought I could start with that. Perhaps you've heard of Thomas Friedman and his famous book, The World is Flat. And that is the same as globalization 3.0. There's 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and presently is 4.0. It's also related to the digital ages, or digital revolution ages. Just let's see what it says. The world is flat. The flattening of the world means that we are now connecting all the knowledge centers on the planet together into a single global network, which could usher in an amazing era of prosperity, innovation, collaboration by companies, communities, and individuals at our very personal levels. The recognition that the world was flat was unnerving because I realized that this flattening had been taking place while I was sleeping. And I had missed it, or I missed it. And that is the risk we run in Africa, of missing incredible things that are happening. I thought of just putting that. I put a lot of slides, you'll be circulated too, so do not worry about the details. Oops. What about this one? The Impact of Information Technology by Jackie Attali in his book, Higher Education in the Global. I'm still educating myself. The impact of information technology will be even more radical than the harnessing of steam and electricity in the 19th century. That largely was a global 3.0. Rather, it will be more akin to the discovery of fire by early ancestors. He should have said in Africa. Rather, where was I? Since it will prepare the way for a revolutionary leap into a new age that will profoundly transform human culture. There is Africa interconnected, literally today. The wiring is not as close as the reality, and I should have shown the total world, but I selected that one. But let's look at this one. Electricity consumption per capita around the world. The red is where, I like all these pictures, by the way. Let's go a little bit back. The reds are really where electricity is used intensively. You can see North America, the Soviet Union, the Europe. A bit of Africa, South Africa. I believe this was Libya. I'm not quite here about today. This is not Africa, this is the Arabian Peninsula, Australia, and so forth. And as it gets lighter, it shows there's actually very little electricity being used per capita. And there is really the sub-Saharan Africa. We are sitting somewhere here. I should have showed the dots. And that is directly related to seeing the Earth from space. These are pictures taken by NASA. They're very interesting pictures, and but I understand the process of producing a picture like this is a little complicated, but this is the final product. So you can see once again, oh my, oh my, oh my. You can see once again where there is electricity. In the darkness, you can see a lot of light, Europe, India, and so forth. I see a dot here. I presume this must be Nairobi, where Johannesburg, somewhere here. I think this must be Lagos, and so forth. Global electricity presence. Africa on the brink, on the edge. That is just a map of Africa. Why am I saying this? This is another very interesting, it's related to the first one. And it looks like a full stomach if you look at the pictures the way they are done. This again, let's go a little bit back. It went faster than. This again is North America. South America is rather, I'm not quite sure whether it's sleep or simply going through a hunger process. Europe. And where is Africa? There is Africa. And this is the total global publications on literally all areas especially science development. And when I say science, I include social sciences. That is very important to note. So are we at the brink? Where is the guy who is doing miracles? The question is, are we at the edge or at the brink of actually extinction? Yet we were the first people to light fire. Remember, let's not forget that. The risk of being off the networks of computing, of social relations and so on. And it creates a situation of death environment. There are three kinds of death in this world. The heart death, the heart just gives up. There's brain death, I think it's related to heart death. And thirdly, there is being off the network, or off the grid. And really, this is off the centers of excellence, off innovation. This is taken from this guy called Guy Ames. He's the chief engineer. He was then at what is called Internet 2. These are innovation networks, research and innovation networks. In the case of Kenya, we have KNET. The Eastern and Southern Africa, we have UbuntuNet. West Africa, you have, I think the French speaking, is it Wacronet or something near that? And so forth and so forth. So if you are off any of those networks, according to this guy, and Internet 2 is the largest, the strongest, the most powerful, of course followed by Europe. If you're off these centers of innovation, it looks like then your heart does not need to die, your brain does not need to die, but you are likely to die. What are characteristics of digital age? I just got that one because I thought it was interesting. But it does also look like that old African fire just lit the world. But what are the characteristics of this digital age that is now being talked about by everybody? And if you look at the literature, it seems very difficult to reduce it to simple terminologies or things that we can understand easily, especially if we are not the so-called the hard scientists, the physicists, the mathematicians, and so forth. It has many names, and they are all interrelated: computer age, information age, a period in human history characterized by shift from traditional industry, as it was known by the Industrial Revolution. You know, those big industries spending out a lot of smoke. Industry is now very modernized. It doesn't smell, it doesn't produce smoke, and so forth. And the economy is based on largely computers, so to speak. I came across that. These are not original to me. They're just very interesting things. This graph just shows us in very simple terms the technological aspects, the innovative aspects, the characteristics of the digital age, the interactive aspects, the global aspects. This, to me, was very complicated. So I have another slide simplifying it, and is written by a social scientist. But before I come to that, let's just see. I won't go through all of them. The technological one you can see is limitless avenues for acquiring knowledge. Literally limitless. But there is threats to well-being and security. Cyber issues, cyber security is a critical thing. The question of hacking takes place daily. As you sit here, you don't know who is looking at your bank account. The beauty is, if your bank account has just about 10 shillings like mine, you shouldn't be worried. International, it is international in scope. Streaming services, online shopping, great opportunities. It is also interactive. I think somewhere later I have a slide on really the incredible capacity of our children in managing. That really spearheaded the whole ICT revolution all the way from California. where you have young people who stay within one space and interact 24 hours. And I don't know that there's anybody from the School of Engineering, University of Nairobi, Mechanical Engineering Department. When I was at the ministry, I brought them an equipment, and the students were going sick after a week because they were not sleeping. It's a maker space, collaboration, media fluency is important, diverse communication channels, exchange of ideas, messaging, face-to-face, interactive. In fact, face-to-face, as we sit here now, maybe in 20 years you'll be redundant. Why get people all over Africa to come and sit in Nairobi? You can communicate more efficiently using modern technology. That is the beauty of a Nigerian coming to Kenya, Oga, isn't it? Or vice versa. When started. So we need to travel for social reasons. It's global, of course. And these are just examples. A few examples. Traditional geographical barriers have been removed literally. Location no longer an obstacle to anything. Unless you're in Kenya and your boyfriend is in Nigeria. Interconnectedness, multiculturalism, inclusiveness is incredible. But I have a little simpler one now. Knowing core characteristics of the digital age, what are the challenges facing higher education? What is happening now? A sabotage or something? Okay, let's look at the matter of innovation. Really, and I thought of just going back to something called the Oslo Manual, all the way by OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, largely the richest countries. And they had the opportunity to give a definition of innovation that became standard. I remember one time the ministers of science and technology in Africa were using methodologies derived from the so-called Oslo Manual to see whether we can calculate the status of innovation in Africa. And by then, Kenya was the chair of those ministers, and I was the chair of the technical committee. And as we looked at these manuals, they looked very complicated. We asked ourselves, who else has used these manuals? We found China had, so did India, but they changed how they're used. So we had delegations to both China and India just to study how they're calculating the status or the state of innovation in their countries. And therein lies the beginning of methodology derived by African Union through NEPAD to generate a formula for Africans to calculate their state of innovation. That is still the method that is in use. The Oslo manuals, there was another one called Frascati manuals and so forth. But how did this define this? Before I come to that. The implementation of a new or significantly improved product, good or service or process, a new marketing method, a new organizational method in business practices, workplace organization, or external relations. The manual defined 4 types of innovation, but I think these are standard, they are well known. Product innovation, process innovation, marketing innovation, organization innovation. And depending on where you want to fit, you can see what type of information, innovation you are dealing. But why does innovation matter? Innovation from the science technology point of view is a key driver of economic and social development. Key driver of economic growth for developed high-income countries. Does it mean the less developed countries were less innovative from the science and technology point of view? And I think largely the answer is in the affirmative. But innovation is even more significantly important for developing countries. Doubtless we have incredible resources, natural resources. But these natural resources historically were used to generate development for other people. How can we Kenyans have oil in Turkana? And we are now starting to use lorries to drive it to Mombasa, send the crude oil, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, refine it, then send it back. Nigerian friends, that is what you did. No wonder your pump fuel price is the highest in Africa. Kenya, you're going to follow suit. Ghana adopted a different model in their Ghanaians here. Before President Kibaki left office, it was very clear we should have a refining system in Turkana. If we don't do that, we are going to face the same crisis of countries that have oil, and it begins a crisis of that country to incredible problems. So Kenyans, read my lips. Different roles of innovation at different stages. I think let's note this. It could be issues of, oops, this one definitely I want you to see, but let's see whether we can just go back a bit. I wish I can with my own stuff, but not to worry. Earlier stages of development. We have to adopt foreign technologies. That is what we're doing, because we are doing very little, if at all, indigenous innovations. There is also social innovation, which can improve the effectiveness of business and public services. The high technology research-based innovation. The following tables provide detailed schematic overview of various aspects of innovation for different categories of countries. And just this is for noting, it will be circulated, you can see it. For example, the developing low-income countries and emerging middle-income countries. It just gives some examples really of what tends to happen. I want you just to read that. I don't think we have the time to go through. And then emerging middle-income countries that are making incredible progress. We are talking of the Malaysias, the Brazils, and so forth. But it's becoming critically important. We cannot talk of innovation just as a singular item or event, or just one single place. But what is important is to understand the total, initially national ecosystem of innovation. Then you can even talk of regional ecosystem. And it is that basic background where then a lot of things can take place. Then somebody told us, what are the key challenges facing universities in context of this quite innovative environment? And a study by Deloitte, Global Research Unit. Deloitte are major study people. And quite often they just use university professors to do the work for them. So let's just see, I've listed 6 of them. Student expectations that are rising, technology, digital innovation is really the norm. Operating in a global context, it's becoming, no university can avoid the global context. Linking estates. Estates are the physical requirements of university, like buildings, lecture rooms, and so forth, or planned in terms of labs. What is the strategy for that? Attracting and retaining the best talent. Talent, both faculty and students. Best talent is fought around the world globally. That is why some of the leading African scholars are still stuck in the US, in Europe. And perhaps those who have nowhere else to go, like Kiamba in Kenya. Rising cost and shifting funding. Cost funding is a crisis. We have our new Cabinet Secretary, Professor Magoa, who some of you know very well. because he just cannot manage the issues of funding, he has taken the decision to restructure the Kenya's higher education system. It's a follow-up to what they are doing in basic education. One would have wished he consulted a little bit more the stakeholders, and they're here. Sometimes when we go to government, we tend to breathe from the top. And Magwai is my brother. You may wish to know he was my deputy vice chancellor when I was vice chancellor at the University of Nairobi. Incredible Kenyan. But it will need a lot of consultation. And there are good ideas in our universities that can assist the Kenyan universities, there's no doubt. Cost is critical, there's no doubt. But let's discuss and understand this as Kenyans. What is the implication of that cost? Because if we compare the amount of money lost through alternative means, and I will leave that to interpretation, Kenya is very rich. Research is critical. What about mapping technological change in higher education through 2020? I'm referring to a study that was done by the New Media Consortium. It's called the Horizon Report 2016 Higher Education Horizon Edition. Mapped out the major technological trends and challenges facing higher education institutions through 2020. It is not the only study, by the way, in many studies, but it's a very interesting one in how it perceives things. It was a collaboration between the New Media Consortium and the EduCourse Learning Initiative. I'm sure some of you already know what is the EduCourse. Comprise 58 education experts across 5 continents, 16 countries, one of the biggest studies. The world's longest running exploration of emerging technology and uptake in education. If you want to do any research on this issue, that is the study you will find very useful. And the report addresses itself to what they say is formidable challenge. Formidable challenge is just a difficult, complex challenge that is making me not sleep. Education technology is rapidly advancing and evolving, and I think we all know that. It is even difficult to discern when and how to properly implement it to foster real transformation. It is there, it's changing. What to do actually is complex. Blending learning approaches, and that's where all of you, I think, are experts, are already being widely adopted. But also focus significant structural change for institutions by 2010. One can even ask themselves, in Africa, are we for serious about this concept of MOOCs, massively online, open online courses? Have we wondered why the leading universities are the one selling these courses, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and so forth? Is it possible the traditional open system we knew tomorrow will be archaic and MOOCs will take over? The University of Cambridge even started something they call small, massive online, which seems an oxymoron, isn't it? Small mixed with massive. But why is it the leading universities are actually changing the way we deliver, we teach our students, the way we learn? Europe got concerned with the movement in North America and set a committee early last year, the implications of MOOCs on university education. And they produced a report. For those in education, maybe you have seen that report. And they are making very simple conclusions that whoever provides leadership in MOOCs controls the world knowledge. Are we at the precipice in Africa? Those were the cartoons I gave you earlier on, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the issues of the digital age are things like Internet of Things. Then you wonder, what the hell is Internet of Things? We know Internet, when we are told Internet of Things, it's just everything getting globalized, everything getting digitized. That's basically what it means in simple language.
our kids know how to use it, but when we grow up somehow, I think the brain becomes slower as we go towards the point of a simplicity of it. But then most of you are young, you're not worried, so you're okay. At the Department of Real Estate, University of Nairobi, one of the courses I've started teaching is called blockchain, which is part of the fourth industrial revolution processes. Blockchain is the technology that has been used to design cryptocurrencies. Indications of that cryptocurrencies will take over the normal official money as we know, fiat money, like the Kenya shilling, the official government shilling, the dollar, the franc, and so forth. Because cryptocurrencies are very interesting. The governor of central bank has discouraged Kenyans thinking about them. But there are two Kenyans who have developed cryptocurrencies and they are already trading in the global world. Two young Kenyans. Bitcoin, as we know it, was the first one. They still are not very sure who actually generated Bitcoin. Very interesting. But they say it could be an acronym of the four leading East Asia technology companies that did it. And deliberately, they never want to know who did it. And there's a lot of debate who did that. But Bitcoin is the high. The second one, Ethereum, was actually developed by a 17, 19-year-old Russian. And that is usually the beginning of revolutions, when you see people between 15 and 20 take control of the world. Because the same two guys in Kenya who have already generated some cryptocurrencies are actually between 19 and 25. Because we ask, how do I even buy something with cryptocurrency? That is what happened when the first car appeared in Europe. And they said they always want to travel using horses, not these metal smelling things with a lot of smoke. If there is a European here, I'm sure they can tell us a different story. Shall we be telling a different story about cryptocurrency and our kids? And remember, our kids tomorrow must compete technologically with Koreans, with Chinese, with Singaporeans. And if they are not at the top of things, then we have a crisis. And that is why our students are demanding. And it is their demand must respond to education. And as you can see, I'm saying quite ad hocly, or in fact even inordinately related issues, just to challenge you as you think of what to educate, how to educate. A summary of technology-related trends and challenges for higher education institutions through 2020. It's the same study. They produced this very interesting graphic showing. I think I may have a bigger one. Let's see whether we can find it. There you are. Showing the challenges. Whoops! This is getting. The challenges that can be solved. They are difficult to solve. They are wicked. They need simply we don't have the solutions for them now. Rather nice language. And the trends, short term, mid term, long term, and then the period in question up to 2020. And again, this is very detailed, so I'll just let you read it and just use it in context of what you are teaching, what you are designing, the methodology, the mode of teaching you are using, whether social science or anything else, really, there isn't a lot of difference. The short-term impact was growing focus on measuring learning. Remember, like learning outcomes, some say learning outputs. Those of us who are not experts don't know the difference. Increasing use of blended learning designs. And then people who are learning use very complicated words like blended learning. It's very simple. There's people need setup, redesigning learning spaces. That is critical. The concept of maker spaces comes under that. Shift to deeper learning approaches. I believe this is where this organization is thinking to get the best learning approaches such that we can use in Africa. And then of course in the long advanced cultures of innovation, rethinking how institutions work. Shall we not revisit even the definition of an institution? It's more complex than half. Say, just look at it and see what you can learn from it. Adoption of virtual augmented realities, as well as reimagining physical spaces. I seem to be coming to this reimagining physical space for us. Maker spaces. I decided just to get a slide to make us see a little bit that. It's defined by its purpose. Very simple, actually. A place where young people have an opportunity to explore their own interests, learn to use tools, materials, both physical, virtual, develop creative projects. I think another slide a little more detailed. So it's a place where our kids will rule, not us. And that is how the whole revolution of ICT started at both Stanford and within the California area. As I said earlier, you had purely very inquisitive people who used common space to think throughout the night, and by the morning they're actually designing the beginning of computers. I have some slides just talking a little bit more about maker spaces and goals. And I think those who are teaching this concept is critical. But do you think so? There's some Kenyan who say, do I say, I'll leave you to that. Just, you look at it. Drivers of tech adoption in education. Common to all groups. You can see even hacking technology to somebody who was a named professor is too complicated. Very sad, isn't it? Common to all technological innovations, the disruption is an understanding that higher education is on its way to be fundamentally emergent. And I think we have seen this is largely because of the students demanding, not so much really us, demand their education to pave the way for solid jobs. They are increasing willingness to consider options outside traditional bachelor and postgraduate degrees. They're becoming very innovative. Indications are that there is declining domestic enrollment in universities in the US and in the UK, and I'm sure other places is a very complicated situation. You saw, since the last world ranking calculations, US has dropped. It has always led, especially because of the Harvards and the Yale, the MITs. But since the 20 years, the ranking started, US is starting to go down. And you guess who are starting then to climb? Southeast Asia universities and the massive Chinese university system. And a little later I'll talk about something on research universities and the alliances that are taking place, and Africa is not left behind in that connection. Entrepreneurial mindsets of these kids is incredible. Expectation among students that education incorporate the digital world they are immersed in every day. I should say every day and every night. And look at your kids. They're immersed in incredible technology, and they demand even their education must be along the same lines. Otherwise, you are left in Swahili, umeachwa. But you can translate any Kenyan Swahili, but always doesn't speak Swahili. Students have expected that higher education will mean that the information accessibility and the immediacy of their connected lives. It doesn't do that. It's boring. They even have shame. It doesn't kill. Then you wonder, is that killing people? No. It doesn't excite them. This is one of the reasons that global enrollments in books has enormously, I think I should have enormously increased over the last just 5 years. And in Africa, I know Wits and Cape Town and Pretoria are already working with the MOOCs generated at Harvard and MIT. So they're starting to make progress. West Africa, especially the French-speaking, working with a Switzerland company, have generated some common MOOCs. Those from the French-speaking West Africa may tell you a little bit more about that. Kenya, I don't know, I've not heard anything about MOOCs in our universities. Does it mean there will be the fundamental mode of delivery of education as we run to the future? Short-oriented, massively available, open. And MOOCs, remember, are for free. We shall then free, when we talk of education is expensive, when it is free, it will not be because it is expensive, perhaps the way we deliver it. I gave a talk to chancellors of public universities when Matiang'i was the minister, and we had agreed he would set up a national committee just to ask in Kenya. And let me use very interesting language. What the hell is books? Then Matiang'i left briefly, Amina came in. Briefly after that, my brother Amore, is it Amore Wamagoga is in there. I think he needs to take action quickly. And I'm talking now with respect to Kenya. It applies across the board. Let's understand this thing. Anything that has been generated by the leading centers of excellence and thought, we cannot ignore it. Leadership is important in terms of policy. Education, or education for the fourth and future industrial revolutions. Let me see what are these slides. With the massification of education occurring worldwide over the past 3 decades, the design of both the traditional and contemporary education systems has failed to ensure access to quality, relevant education for the world's population. Quality and relevance are the really key players here. There is need to redesign contemporary education system to create an adaptable and flexible system. Adaptability, flexibility are key. Support education for the fourth and future industrial revolutions. Let's see, it's part of various conversations on student-centered learning. We talked of learning outcomes, lifelong learning. These are catchwords in reforms in education, and even the use of ICT in education, the education sector and higher education in particular, is still adopting antiquated methods of facilitating learning. We are lagging behind. Curricula and program can barely catch up with the needs of industry and contemporary social life. That's how then you become antiquated. And we're just not talking of the younger ones only. Anybody who is willing to learn, lifelong learning, continuous learning, adaptation, changing technologies, and so forth. Changing learning environment, work environment, adapt to cultural, economic, political, and social developments. The recommendations of that report referred to 21st century skills. We tend to focus on closing the digital divide, ICT competences, that is, use of open educational resources generally, may be led by MOOCs, e-learning and mobile learning, to increase access to and quality, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing, just a simple handset, mobile telephone, the smart ones at least. is more powerful than the computers that took the space flights during the 60s. So it means our kids, if we joke, they will design things that we are sleeping, and you hear they went to the moon. Because they have power in their little set. That is incredible if it is well utilized. We can do better. Some of us are not finished. This is Obama. And that's me. Colleagues, Professor Kiamba has marked the key trends that one would say circumscribe higher education, but they also speak to science, and in fact our very existence as the human species, if you agree. Very interesting things. Any questions, please?
My name is Josephine Kabuki, but that doesn't mean that I will not ask a question, and I'm not asking the prof a question. Students don't question their professors, but they reason with them, and they want us to reason here. And I want to make several, observations. And my first one is that the Industrial Revolution came and bypassed Africa. The Agricultural Revolution came again and bypassed Africa. Now we are in the information or technological revolution, and I'm afraid that despite all that the prof has told us, that it might also bypass Africa, and here is why. One, I look at Africans currently as just consumers, consumers and not innovators. Look at us, we are all using phones, we are all using laptops. How much have we done in terms of value addition into these computers? And the answer is, we are actually doing very little. And so we should encourage, value addition, and especially in the production. Second, the level, the playing ground, globally is not level, and especially for African innovators. And I give you an example of, Kenya being a very key player in innovation, and especially when we came up with the M-Pesa, innovation. We are transferring money all over, and I'm glad to say that Africa has actually adopted, it's giving Kenya market for that innovation. But first, who came with that innovation is a big debate. Was it a Kenyan child or not a Kenyan child? That's a debate. Again, the Western world has refused to adopt, the M-Pesa. So they do not want us to lead, but to follow them. They don't want to follow us. They want us always to keep on following them.
Sorry, apologies for interrupting you. In the interest of time, we'll come back, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you have started, please?
I want to thank Prof. For the very wonderful presentation, the provocative presentation. I'm going to do two things with your kind permission. The first is to say we have 6 Arua universities in this place already. So I think PASGA is pretty closely connected with Arua in that sense. And the outgoing chair of the board of PASGA is the executive director of Arua. And so in that sense, we're connected with Arua in a very significant way. But the elephant in the room is what I want to provoke you about, Prof. I look at the 3 intimately in terms of my own professional history. I'm actually connected with some of these institutions. I look at the 3 examples you cited in Africa. The only one that is significantly African in terms of its resources is an African Square Kilometer project, ARE project. AIMS and Arua were actually, they might have been led by Africans. The funding must have been led, but the massive injection of funds are not coming from the continent. And the elephant in the room there, and that's where the model on pedagogical leadership is important, and some of the things that we're doing in Pascal. The elephant in the room is how can we get Africans to put their money into something like this? Either as an investment, you're talking about the iHubs. You know, there's the Nairobi iHub, there's the Lagos iHub. They are the two most dynamic iHubs on the continent today. Apart from, no, I know the South Africans would like that. But they're more, you know, in terms of the dynamism. But there's no connection between the University of Lagos and the Yaba. It's in Yaba, it's in Sabo. There's no connection between Nairobi, University of Nairobi, and the iHub. I think we need now, part of the pedagogical leadership is to be able to talk to, and you see there's one thing, money has to come from somewhere. The money from China came from government. The money from the US was a combination of space research, government, and Silicon Valley, and the massive accumulation of resources. Africa, there's no R&D on this continent, because unless now that Dangote is beginning to pay an attention and calling a couple of scholars, he's planning some meetings with scholars now. The problem there is because what we consume in Africa, the research and development of it is not done in Africa. There's no need for Coca-Cola to come to Nairobi and give it, when they can go to Atlanta, Georgia. So they just sell the Coke to us and we drink it. So we need to convince our people of wealth. Let the Danjumas move from building laboratories and halls of residence to putting money in research. Professor Ade Ilesomi, who used to be at Illinois, when we visited him, he ran a $4 billion scientific laboratory provided by the private sector. So how do we get the African private sector to invest in joint projects? And that's where innovation is. I actually also wanted to question the concept of innovation, because some people might say it's a neoliberalized concept, but it's a complete business process development concept. It's not the same as creativity. You remember we were talking about this last night. It's not the same as creativity. So we talk about innovation, innovation, innovation. Innovation is a business project, and that is the key issue with African higher education, the disconnect between business and African higher education. And that's something that we have to lead ourselves in terms of moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a hand there in the interest of justice.
Thank you very much. I was very touched, Professor Kiamba, by the images you gave us where we're doing badly in Africa, on the amount of publications, on the amount of electricity and the other. I have a feeling that the trend is not going to change if we don't address the cause for this. And I believe I've seen a lot in your presentation, Professor. There is suggestion to adopt the Western technologies, and as you realize, we shall always be behind the West. I have a feeling that although globalization is a very important thing, but it's ambivalent also because of the risk of homogenization of things. And when you look at our universities, in order to be promoted or to publish, you have to publish in a Western journal. Even like the Professor Tada has told us, okay, like before he said, even if we have to have universal knowledge, there is a need to think about our indigenization of what we do. I know whatever we're doing, like I've seen we are talking about, for instance, the next Einstein. We have models in Africa, if you look at our history. But we ignore them. We always want to follow what the social evolution is brought. We have to follow a certain linear development. And I think we shall always be disadvantaged in this. So I think we need to adapt the system. Instead of adoption, we adapt the Western technology with what works here. Like my sister talked about the mobile money, for instance. That's an innovation from we adapted the innovation from the West to the needs of Africa. Instead of maybe going to the sky In some universities, people are trying to invent cars which have already been invented instead of innovations that can solve our people's problems. I think we need to change the course of innovation.
Professor, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to those who have commented or posed some questions. Let me start with the first one. The fear that even the digital revolution will bypass us. And I think that fear is genuine fear. Because if we do nothing, it will bypass us. Because it will catch us napping, asleep, and by the time we wake up, they'll be talking of the fifth, the sixth, and so forth. So I think the challenge then, and I don't think I have a very clean answer, is for all of us to strive to ensure we are either part of the processes, strive as much as we can to control them where we can. It requires incredible resources. The resources are money, but there is also the component of mental resources, and I don't think necessarily in Africa we don't have mental resources. But also attitudes, just the way we do things. And somebody somewhere told me, Kenyan, stop saying you are poor. Kenya, you're so rich. Just use your resources. And I think the same applies when part of Africa. Identify your priorities, ensure the resources are directed where the impact is greatest and relevant for purpose of development. But that is a debate we must all have, because I think without saying much, see, the word corruption is a social construct. Economists, although they are part of the social phenomenon, they use different concepts. Economists don't necessarily criticize the so-called corruption. I think it's part of a very efficient manner of the distribution of resources. Oh, I thought she was coming to keep me company. Oh, it's going to be arranged. No going back. Where was I? Distribution of resources. Distribution of resources. So really, the debate we as Africans must really deal with them. It will not be very kind, but we must deal with them. And when I give the Kenyan example, I think I'm talking on behalf of Africa. My Nigerian friends know I'm always very unhappy with them, because Nigeria is not providing the necessary leadership Africa deserves. Where else is it going to come from? Maybe South Africa. But Nigeria, believe you me, you're a very powerful nation, not just because of the money, but as a part of Africa that can provide the leadership. But it means you perhaps have to do it differently. But that applies to everybody in Kenya, including tiny countries. Which ones are there? You have some countries that are less than 2 million people. Gambia and so forth. So that is a question that really I don't have an answer. We just have to engage ourselves, be sympathetic to one another as we tell each other the truth. But if we clothe it in nice words and possibly nice suits, then God help you. You'll certainly be dozing, if not asleep, as the 6th, the 7th, the 8th revolutions comes along. But then we have our kids who are already at the leadership in the 5th Industrial Revolution in very practical terms. So if we just provide them the necessary leadership, believe you me, they'll be part of the global kids. Because our kids must fight, not necessarily physically, but mentally and everything, with Korean kids, Indian kids, Chinese kids, American kids, European kids. They have no choice. So if we don't equip them to also be able to sustain that battle, we've got a problem in Africa. I think the solution is in us. I don't want us to blame anybody else. The solution is in us, but we must think hard. To me, that is where our African universities come in. That is why the brains that are here come in. We must unsympathetically provide well-calculated, well-thought-out solutions to Africa. But then sometimes the friends told me that when some of you become PSs or ministers, you're no different. And imagine you are peers, you are told that by somebody who is twice younger than you. It's a big pain, but I think they had a point. Shall I leave that one there? Yes. I think the first one had a number of issues. We are consumers, yes we are. Value addition, we do very little. We just consume Western things. I'll tell you the story of the HIV vaccine development research project at the University of Nairobi, where it started, and the sort of challenges we went. It just gives an example of what can happen when you're doing research, global research. Some of you might be involved. You remember the researchers at the University of Nairobi actually discovered sex workers in Majengo, perhaps elsewhere, seem to be immune to infection by this little creature that spreads AIDS. And if that was the case, therein lay the beginning of vaccine. It's a question of now understanding it and getting the science and everybody on board. And we really have incredible researchers in that department. We did a number of departments at the University of Nairobi, the medical school. And it became a global project. The universities from North America, from UK, and so forth. In the process, the UK Medical Council and University of Oxford decided to register patents on some of the results of that research without consulting and involving their counterparts at the University of Nairobi. And that historically has been a major issue. We agreed, I was the deputy to Professor Shaga, as we were talking, we agreed, let's not just sit down, let's see what to do about this thing. And remember, that was also the same time our faculty of engineering was trying to design a university, a Kenyan campus. That's another long story, because you don't see cars that are Kenyan. But with respect to HIV vaccine, we decided to challenge the legislation of those patents. But remember, you're challenging Oxford, the UK Medical Research Council, and you are two guys from the university, they don't quite know what Kenya. But we decided that we challenge. So Professor Chen appointed a committee that I chaired to really explore every opportunity, and we got the university lawyer and other lawyers to discuss with us. And we held meetings at Oxford and London, and the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative is based in Washington. That was providing a lot of the funding. The funding that came from Bill Gates and other people. And we decided to politicize the matter a little bit. Just call these people what we thought they were. But academicians use very nice language. We just call them wezi, thieves. And I think they started fearing, so they decided to, let's work with these guys. So we had an agreement after about 1 year debate on if there was ever a vaccine generated because of that project. 3 institutions would share the benefits. The legal term is undivided, which means really equally. University of Nairobi would have 1/3, the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative coordinating most of the American participation 1/3, and the UK system the other 1/3. I was still feeling we've been taken for a ride. And at least the ride was not as bad as when we started, isn't it? So we decided to go along with the ride. And to date, that is the case. But that is such a complicated science that I've got to understand. But I understand I'm pretty close to discovering the vaccine. And if that happens, it will be a global medication, isn't it? So this University of Nairobi can generate actually billions from that single project. Of course, it will benefit first and foremost the medical programs. but becomes the resources that we get. I'm using that just as an example. It's not easy, it can be done. But my God, you need to be alert wherever you are. And sometimes you need to call people for what they are, which we decided to do. And it involved the entire medical global fraternity. We all get together and call these people thieves. And it's not easy. Remember, brothers protect brothers. I don't know about sisters. That's just an example. The car project was a very interesting one, but that's a long story, which we're also involved. As a principal of architecture engineering, the car project came under me, Egypt and Tekishagan. And we got opposition from our own government. We started with our government. When another government came in, the priority was free primary education. So money that we were to get from Japanese to put into that project was transferred to free primary education. That was the death of the project. Was that a better decision? History will say, I'm not qualified, at least I don't think I did it. But we have very interesting cases. Some of them can get very personal. Now, I'm even getting carried away. Let me see. And I tend to get carried away. Elephant in the room. What is the elephant?
Hello. Let's see your countries. Ghana here, Burundi, welcome. Kenya, Uganda, welcome. Ghana, Eswatini, Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, you are Mauritius, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone. The whole continent is here today. And it's more than exciting that as the Association of African Universities, we are really able to create the platform where the continent, Botswana can really meet. Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, you are most welcome. Prof. Atta. I see Ghana, I see lots of Nigeria, lots of Kenya. Where is Gambia? Mozambique, South Africa, you are most welcome. We hope we are going to have a highly productive session today, because today where we are going with quality assurance is the real way to go. Cameroon, welcome Cameroon. It's good to be with you here. I'm checking on Liberia. I'm checking on Gambia. We saw Lesotho, I'm not sure now. Yes, Tanzania, I haven't seen Tanzania, please. Are we around? Normally we have colleagues from Tanzania. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, in just a few minutes, we are going to start, just like 4 minutes or so. The reason why we open early is to make sure that our colleagues behind the scenes will not be overwhelmed by admitting people into the room. And I think the earlier the better, because sometimes the room also fills up quickly and it becomes a challenge. Zambia, yes, we haven't heard from Zambia. Zambia, you are most welcome. I'm seeing another University of Mauritius. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope we are going to have a very fruitful session. The session for next week, actually, I was thinking we could use that to reflect on what I'm going to present on today, because there are key issues which are at the core, and I know we won't even have time for everyone to actually make a contribution or ask questions, because we have brought the giants together, internal quality assurance and external quality assurance. And we know there are issues there. And these are some of the neutral platforms where we can actually address those issues. Zambia, welcome. I saw Namibia. So today I'm like, I'm a Namibian. I'm a Shivambo woman because of what I'm wearing. This is a Namibian dress, by the way. So I saw some from Namibia here. Yes. Right. Now we are just left with like 2 minutes. Togo. Welcome, Togo. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Togo. I hope to see more of you. This actually becomes really encouraging, highly encouraging that almost all the African countries are being represented. We are also working towards having plugins which can enable us to translate to our colleagues who speak French, because in CAMES we have about 19 countries, and most of them are purely French speakers, but we don't want to leave them behind. We want to move on with everybody. Botswana, Buan, welcome. Hey, my Odelela address, yes, thank you. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's time for us to start today's session. And this is a very, very hot session where I know there are many, many critical issues. So what I've done and what I'm thinking of doing is that today I concentrate on the presentation. Next week, instead of us having a session where I present on my own, we can now embark on a question and answer session together with some comments, some case studies to help each other in this key and what area. Because, you know, without quality assurance, particularly the new dimension of quality assurance that we now have, we can't push these institutions, we can't sustain them. Our key stakeholders will be watching to see what will be happening. I'm going to share my screen with all of you in a moment. Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you that quality starts with you. Quality begins with you. There's no reason why you can point at some people to say, you, what are you doing? They may also say, at least 3 fingers are also pointing at you. You, are you also not responsible for quality in our institutions? In that regard, I just want to say quality is in our hands. All of us, we belong to these higher and tertiary education institutions, and we really need to do our best to sustain them. And the issues of sustainability in higher education are very pertinent and important, because higher education is a key component and a key aspect in socio-economic as well as political development. So we need to really try and hold it up with the respect that it deserves. So we just need to be committed to quality. From the lower level person, the security people, the ones who help us to keep our premises and environments clean, they equally matter. Everybody, the students, the staff, teaching and non-teaching, everybody else is very, very important. So before we go any further, in the interest of those who are joining us for the first time, yes, my name is Dr. Violet Makuku. I'm a Zimbabwean by birth, but I'm based in Accra, Ghana, where we are at the AAU, Association of African Universities headquarters. I have some experience in teaching in the universities for like 12 years, and then I started as a teaching assistant, went on to be a lecturer and a director of quality assurance before coming to the Association of African Universities. I've also done a lot of institutional evaluations, a lot of program and institutional assessments and reviews and evaluations. I also just write some book chapters. I review journals. I do workshops in quality assurance in research, quality assurance in higher education, because the quality assurance is found across the board, even in industry. So that one, last time we defined what quality is in higher education. We defined what quality assurance is, and we also talked about why quality assurance in higher education and how it can be effectively executed and instituted. What are the major tenets of quality assurance? We talked about those things. So I'm just going past them as quickly as possible. We said fitness for purpose, a brand, meeting and or surpassing set standards, value for money. If I pay for a program, I just want to see that there are new things that I've learned. It's the same with value addition. If I do an undergraduate program in your institution and move on to do a postgraduate program, will I see addition in knowledge and skills? That's a pertinent question. And if I don't see it, then there's no value for my money. And also definitely there's no value addition. Transformation for the better, we want that. And currently, ladies and gentlemen, from the past 3 or 4 webinars, I think I've said that our main focus this time around is transformation for the better. Coming of the 4th industrial revolution, artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, which have now been propelled and pushed forward by the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, we realize that other than transformation, we will not remain relevant. We will become obsolete. When we become obsolete, then eventually we will close because we are likely not to attract any students. And we said it is from this definition, which is so much outstanding, which says quality is doing right when no one is looking, by Henry Ford, which tells us and compels us then to have quality assurance in our institutions. So today we are going to look at the heart of quality assurance. These are some of the things which you see in some institutions. Utility bills, the water runs down and down. You see all these things. I think they are familiar with you. Why would we need to put all these things, and even the ones which say don't steal tissue paper from the washrooms? We look at quality assurance in higher education. And as for today, this definition is much more important than any other day, because our focus on internal and external quality assurance are going to be hinged on this one. So what is quality assurance in higher education? We are saying that the systematic internal and external management procedures, processes, mechanisms, tools, instruments by which a higher education institution assures its stakeholders of the quality of its systems, processes, products, and outcomes, and of its ability to manage the maintenance and enhancement of quality in those institutions of higher learning. I think earlier on we looked at key tenets of quality assurance, and we agreed that there are issues of accountability. When we have tasks to be done, when we hold our meetings and we identify action areas, do we attach names to these tasks so that these people can be held accountable if nothing progresses? Transparency. What you are doing on your own, can you repeat it if asked to do so where many people are watching? Issues of efficiency come along with effectiveness. Once we are effective, it means that we do a thing once and for all, doing the right thing the first time, all the time, and that brings about efficiency. I always laugh that sometimes you find maybe I want something to be typed for me, so I write this statement, and maybe my handwriting is like that of a medical doctor. Then I gave my colleague to type for me. It comes, the colleague cannot read some of those spellings. So we have one printed paper which is there. I now do a correction. The person goes back to do the corrections, print again, and return to me. Then I said, there's no full stop and comma here and capital letter there, it goes again. Time, printing paper, toner, all those things are going into waste. And it's only the 5th version that is going to be useful and that is going to be made use of. But all those 4, what do we do? Maybe some people would scribble rough drafts at the back of it, but others would readily throw in the waste bin. So can you see, it's just one example which I've given you to just check on how efficiency and effectiveness are too important to us. We talked about double standards. Definitely, ladies and gentlemen, if we want to push the quality agenda, we cannot manage, we can't afford with double standards, because the moment you want to push anything, somebody will say, the way you are doing to me now is not the way you did to X. So please, let's maintain what you did to X. And so applying the quality assurance principles becomes very difficult. We need to make sure that we avoid double standards, because double standards will lock us up. We will be held powerless. We can't implement because we are not clean. And so people will refer to what we have done earlier on, what we have set as earlier precedences. And so let our precedences be right, so that as we move on, everything else is done well. I talked about communication, documentation, and research as key components. Yes, where I say testing, I normally use this document. I think in most African countries, I've seen some three-legged pots. I think we know of these metal pots. If it is one leg, if there are two legs, that pot cannot stand. It cannot stand at all. The same with quality and quality assurance. If we want to be effective, if we want to fully install these, we need to have effective communication channels. Two-way, multiple communication channels, very, very important. Clear instructions, clear requests, and everything else to do with communication that you know should just be in order. But part of communication also involves documentation. Sometimes documentation is something which we don't like, but if we do it, it may save us. I can give you a practical example. In one institution, I proposed that we could have name tags. And people said, no, we are not nurses, we are not police officers in universities, so we can't have name tags. Less than 2 weeks into that, there's a visitor who came into the institution. When the visitor came, they were served by somebody else, and there was a big issue in relation to how the issue was handled. Then the visitor reported to the university leadership. And so they were asked to come back. When they came back, they were asked, so can you identify the person? Yeah, the visitor said, yes, I can. To accuse people, to conclude issues based on hearsay. But we need to take our time to research and find out the real issues on the ground before we reach conclusions which can be make us ashamed at the end of the day, that we will be called apologies because each time you get it wrong because you haven't done your background research, and you go and apologize. Today you apologize to that person, tomorrow you apologize to another person, and now they give you this nickname, apologies. We move on. Let's see. I can see there are two participants who are raising their hands. Irene. Hello, Irene.
Yes, Dr. Violet.
Yes, are you taking care of them?
Since you are making the presentation, that is why we wanted you to go on. So right after you are done, we would allow them to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. If it is about this presentation, please, may you make sure that you jot down your questions. I can see 3 participants. And also, if it is about you can't hear me, I think you check also on your network and on your connection, because right here, currently, we don't have internet challenges. And I think most of the people can hear what I'm saying. Thank you very much. So we need to quickly push on. We talked about planning and doing all these things. I need to move on. My sharing is having challenges. Okay. These are some of the things that can show you that you are in the right track in terms of quality and quality assurance, student progression and success rate. In some incidences, you find there are institutions which are known for students graduating, and students ask each other, so which institution are you going to? They tell, I'm going to this institution, please look for another one. If you want to become a graduate, leave that one. Otherwise, you will never graduate. You will never finish your research project. You are just told things that as long as you go to this institution, you won't graduate. Employability of graduates, it links up with the brand. It also links up with excellency, that the institution is well known for doing good. A student satisfaction with programs. There are programs which, when they are opened, in less than 2 weeks, they are full. People continue to call that they also want to enroll. They want to be part of those programs, but you tell them next time, then you know your programs are good. But with some programs, you advertise 3-4 times. Nobody comes on board, and eventually the program is closed. You are not checking. Why is it that this program has no takers? Is it the mode of offering? Is it that it's no longer relevant in the market? But sometimes we don't even bother to do the research to check on what is really problematic and what is wrong with the programs which do not have takers. And learning resources, profile of students, very important. I think some of the things I talked about them, regular feedback, we also need that, as well as other things that we set for ourselves. Today I've got something new. Ladies and gentlemen, as we talk about quality assurance, let's take cognizance of these aspects. Now, with this diagram, I'm being told that where there's a vision, the skills, incentives, resources, and action plan, we see change. So we need to take note of this thing. But where there is no vision, there's confusion. Now, people do not know even where the institution is heading towards. Right now, everybody else is moving towards online learning and ODL. But now some other institutions are still taking the wait and see stance. Wait and see. Apparently, I'm on the television set every time to check on what is happening regarding COVID-19. And surely we are far from getting a vaccine. Cases are still rising. We have recurrence, a second cycle, third cycle, and you are still taking the wait and see stance. It's a recipe for closure of your institution. It's a recipe for closure of programs. So let's have a vision. This vision should be a shared vision. Once it is a shared vision, we all come to understand it and we all rally behind that vision. And that is important. Now, for other institutions, the strategic plan is held in the sleeves. Nobody knows about it except the leadership. Those who are meant to implement the strategic plan, they don't know anything about it. And they are just told, do this, do that, we are now doing this, we are doing, but they don't know the reason behind why it is being done. Don't you think that if we were to explain why we are doing those things, it will hold more water and become more valuable for our staff to pursue, our students to understand? Very important. In all the past webinars, we have been talking about relevant skills. We need them. And this time around, digital skills are compulsory. They are compulsory for everyone. Incentives, I'm skeptical. I know that even without the COVID-19, there are some institutions which have not even been paying their staff well. They are not worried about who leaves the institutions and who comes in, but they forget that at a point when a person has spent a year or two in your institution, besides working, they are also refining their skills. They are learning from the organization, and now they are better off in helping the organization to go forward. They understand the organizational culture. They now understand the structures. But we choose to say, if you are not satisfied with what we are giving you here, you can as well leave. And some of them, when they get better opportunities, for sure they leave. But deep down our hearts, we know there are certain people whom we don't want to part with because of their skills, their personalities, and all they are able to do. Resources are very important. This time around, at the core are the ICT resources and internet services, ICT infrastructure. That's what is needed. It can be expensive to install, but in the long run, it's very, very efficient and cost effective in terms of running the day-to-day activities in institutions. And it has become more important and suitable for today because, like I said, initially, I used to think that by May 2020, April 2020, we will be done with the COVID-19. But up to now, nobody can tell. Nobody can tell when we are going to get to the peak of things and when we are going to do away with the virus. So let's think about investing in these things. And then we have anxiety where there are no skills. If I don't have the skill and I'm not staff developed, will they keep me? Why are they not staff developing me so that I can become a better person? I don't know. Issues of resistance are because of incentives. But here I sometimes also call upon volunteering. It's also very important. We move on to resources, but when you come to a time where you can't pay for your transport, you can't pay for where you stay, you can't pay for your food, then how do you come to work? Even if you want, sometimes it becomes a bit difficult and challenging. Okay, so with resources also, it comes with some frustrations. And then where there's no action plan, there's a false start. I talked about this new digital norm, and I think I may not be able to play this video, although it's very, very important. I'm not aware of how many new people have joined us, but I played it last time for those who were with us. So now, if we are to define the new digital space and where quality assurance should go, we are going to realize that the shaping of the quality assurance standards and principles and policies that we have been using earlier on will depend on the following bullet points that I'm going to show you. A new way of doing business in higher and tertiary education institutions, and that is the digital way. Virtual events will become more common. In fact, they've already become common. Remote working set to increase the longer term, this catering for the longer term and the immediate of COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. We are really challenged and we need to look for solutions. New modes of huge data chunk storage. How are we going to address all these issues? Because now everybody else in the institution would need to come on board. A spotlight on creativity and innovation, so that, like last week I said, we need to work with our students. We may need to consider establishing these faculties and programs if we didn't have them. Programs in ICT and informatics, those who know Internet of Things, robotics and all that, I think they could go a long way in helping in the transformation of our institutions. Upskilling and staff development, capacity building is the vocabulary which should be in there in our meetings and in our deliberations and we make deliberate efforts also to make sure we are focusing in these key areas. Investment in robust ICTs and internet services, because these are even going to drive the quality assurance that we are going to embark on. And then I have this statement. This implies that quality assurance will have to be reimagined, re-engineered, and reoriented to suit the new higher and tertiary education environment, although everything else remains the same in terms of the standards, the policies, the statutes. But still, some of them, like when we look at the policies, we may need to revisit and check if everything is being represented, because now the directors and may compel us to revisit the policies, the handbooks that we have been using, and so on. How will people work from home? That's my key question always. Importance of quality assurance in the new normal digitized higher and tertiary education space should therefore be heavily underscored. I just want to say to you, where there's quality, there's efficiency. Where there's efficiency, there's cost cutting. And when you look at households, we know that husband and wife, mother and daughter, son and father and relatives, it's always about utility bills. Save water, save electricity. The same happens with the higher education institutions. Utility bills are the most expensive, and they take the huge chunk of our monies. So, are we applying quality assurance to make sure that there's efficiency in reporting broken down taps, leaking taps? How do we check the lights which have been left on throughout the night in the greater part of the lecture rooms, the passages where nobody is? Ladies and gentlemen, these may seem small things, but they cost our need, and they cost us in terms of moving forward to invest in other areas that could otherwise improve the quality of service in our institutions. So let's watch out on that. Are we really waiting for those people who are responsible for the water and electricity to do all the work? Are we reporting? When we report, how do we report? How long does it take the reaction time to have these things repaired? What is our quality culture in the institution? Do you wait to be told, or you are also scouting to check what is wrong, what is right? And then all these things will help us to move forward. In the last webinar, there are some of my slides which I will continuously repeat. Mathematics may teach us how to add love and subtract hate, but it sure teaches that every problem has got a solution. Because at the end of the day, with all those mathematical problems, there've always been solutions to them. And we think about it. But these will always need to find new ways to break the barriers. But it's not only for educators alone. Our students, our academic and academic support staff, our leadership, everybody, from the people who help us with security to those people who help us with keeping our premises, everybody is equally important. Those who help us with our transport and everything, everybody in the institution. Otherwise, we would not employ them. So we need to also respect each other in order to have holistic quality assurance. Unfortunately, the quality assurance which I've seen is not wholesome. It normally focuses on the educators and students. What about it in terms of teaching and learning? Peer evaluation. a student evaluation of the lecture, what have you, the appraisals, but the other people are watching and looking and say, oh, we are not part. But when a lecturer fails to take the students for a field trip or an educational trip, you will realize that it may have to do with the works and maintenance who failed to provide transport. If we fail to do an experiment in the lab, it could have something to do with the lab technicians. If we fail to, we have missing results, it could be our ICT people, it could be our registry, it could be our finance people who are not releasing results because there is no update to show who has paid, who has not paid. The students cannot access them. So we need quality assurance in each and everything that is in the university. Every process needs to be quality assured. Every department, every directorate should be part. And now for our quality assurance, we need to check all these things which are here. How should we be informed by all these words to make sure that we are moving towards a different direction of quality assuring our services and everything else? Again, please, mental slavery. What is it that you have known earlier and which you can remove? So let's have breaking the bad habits, replacing them with better habits, and we move on. So I talked about the two girls who said, we are talking of climate change, that Greta Thunberg, and then we are talking of Yousafzai in Pakistan, who also said the girl child education is important, but they could pronounce these things because they were clean. You can't talk about resolving a problem with other colleagues when they know you are the #1 doer of that bad thing. So you become powerless. So how do we become empowered? We need to declare that we will no longer do it and we need to move forward. Let me revisit this because today is one of the focus points that destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs. I think by now we have all met this in one format or another, somewhere, somehow. Patients die at the hands of such doctors, buildings collapse, money is lost, humanity dies, justice is lost because of what is happening in higher and tertiary education. So ladies and gentlemen, let's take ourselves seriously as we are associated.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.